from my motorhome in Poland, and today I had this idea some time ago to actually do live chats on the previous video which had appeared. So for example, the video may appear on the Friday, and on the Saturday we can actually discuss it, and maybe there'll be questions in real time which I can actually respond to on the video. And I'll try and make this a regular feature. I say I'll try and do it, but I know I've threatened to do this in the past, and so far I haven't been very good at actually doing it. But anyway, as from now, I will try to actually do this. Yesterday I uploaded a video which tells the story of a lady whose husband went missing in Ukraine, and the authorities in Russia were kind enough to tell her that her husband wouldn't be coming back by not bothering to continue paying him. The utter cynicism of this, so they know he's not alive, so they're not going to pay him, but they haven't actually informed her officially, and she still hasn't actually been informed. Now, this did get a little bit of publicity. Obviously, I found out about it, and this happened at the other side of the world, literally the other side of the world. It happened in a place called Chita, which is about 100 kilometers north of the Mongolian border. It's about what? China is about 200 kilometers approximately, and 200 kilometers on the other side to Lake Baikal. So it's called Zabaikala, the other side of the Baikal region. Hello, Annie. And sorry, I'm gonna have to move this here so I can see when people send me messages, if that's all right. And so this situation, of course, has been repeated many times over, thousands of times over, in the current war. We don't know how many people have died. One estimate, which is whereas the Ukrainians are putting up estimates which are now, I think, into six figures, which I find a little bit hard to believe. But certainly as far as casualties are concerned, and a casualty includes wounded, and usually we'd include missing in this as well, so and POWs. So easily the six figures casualties as far as the Russians are concerned. If there are as many as 50,000 dead on the Russian side, then this could have been repeated. We don't know how many times. Now, because of the publicity that this woman got, there was a former commanding general whose name at the moment actually escapes me. It's just gone. He was born in 1967. He was one person. He said they had to burn out all the Ukrainians. He's equivalent of a sort of an SS general, and his name's forgot, just gone. It's gone. I should have written it down. Anyway, he's a member of the parliament, the Duma, and he represents the Zabaikal region, and he was like, oh well, this has to be something something has to be done, and she'll get paid. Of course, as far as I'm aware, as of today, she hasn't been, and I have tried to follow her story. So there are cases, however, where people have been officially informed, and in cases like that, the family can get approximately 15 million rubles. Now, 15 million rubles is what? Let's see, 100 to the pound. It's about what's 170,000 euros, something like that, and it's a huge amount of cash. Now, if we take, it depends on the region they come from, but most of the recruitment's been done in poorer regions. Now, in Russia, in 2022, the average wage there is about 70,000 rubles, but there's a huge difference according to the geographic area. For example, in Moscow last year, if I remember rightly, the average wage is 122,000, and which is a fair whack of cash, and the least was about 41,000 rubles, which is, if so, it's a about about $500, something like that, 450 euros, somewhere around. I just don't on the top of my head, 500, and then they have to pay prices, I mean food prices in Russia. Now, I haven't been there for some time, but I could say this: when I was there, food prices were significantly higher than they are in Western Europe. In fact, I would say, in my experience, the most expensive country I know is Italy, and they are more expensive than far more expensive than Italy. I need to point out as well, I haven't been to Scandinavia for a while, so I know that in Norway things really do cost a lot of money. But to put it in the context as this, is that people are expected to pay huge amounts more than they actually we earn a lot more. Now, one couple of things, of course, which are comparatively cheap in Russia are the transport is much cheaper, fuel's much cheaper, and housing in many regions is much cheaper. But if you want to buy a flat, for example, if you Moscow prices are very similar to the prices in London. So that, but Moscow, I mean, okay, if I wanted to go and live in London, there's no way I could afford it now because of my age. There's no way I could actually get a mortgage. But if somebody who's like 20 and then gets a job in Moscow, I mean, there's probably very little chance of them ever being able to buy a flat there unless they could somehow get social housing there. Anyway, okay. So James just asked, how do I see the war in Ukraine panning out, and will it turn into a world war? Well, that's a very good question. The will it turn into a world war? I'll answer that one first. The thing about turning it into a world war is that when you're losing a war, you don't want to start stacking up more and more enemies, which you're going to have to fight. The fact of the matter is that Russia cannot beat Ukraine, so it's going to be unlikely, therefore, to attack other countries. I say unlikely, I didn't say impossible, because we know from experience that things have happened this way. It was Nazi Germany, it was Hitler who declared war on the United States 3 days after Pearl Harbor, 4 days after Pearl Harbor. No, 7th, 5 days after Pearl Harbor, and so these things. So I mean, when Hitler, maybe he thought he'd knocked the Soviet Union out of the war and that Britain wasn't a real enemy, and maybe he was doing it in support of Japan, but he was looking for extra enemies. We could also say the same thing to a certain extent about Mussolini, who unable to. He attacked Greece when he was already at war with the United Kingdom and the Free French, for example. Maybe he just thought it was an easy target. So I do not believe that Russia would attack. The next question is, where would it attack? It does have a border now. We're figuring out there's a border here with Poland, where I am right now. But I very much doubt that from Kaliningrad it could get the forces inside there to make a successful attack. It could, of course, attack via Belarus, but I think that the troop movements would be pretty obvious. Now, if it had a shot at Estonia or Latvia, that might be that would be much easier. It'd be easier to hide the troops and all the rest of it before making the movement in there, or it could have a go at Finland. But as for I do not believe. Now, the thing is this: would it resort to nuclear weapons? Well, I very much hope that it won't come to that. I think that that Putin must realize that if he did anything like that, it would be his life would be lost. Now, one thing we do have here is the fact that Putin is an absolute coward. He doesn't appear. He's not like, for example, Zelensky, who quite openly, will appear in public places and with troops. Putin seems to spend most of the time in bunkers and things like this. He keeps people at a very large distance, which when this first started happening, I thought, oh, that's great. He's making an example as far as COVID is concerned, instead of partying it like Boris Johnson was. But then what it turns out now, it appears that it's just because of his fear of coming into contact contact with people, and now his fear is not so much of catching COVID as somebody might jump on top of him. As I understand it, there is the people have to they are checked for weapons before they even come in anywhere near him, and the chance of anybody actually bumping him off is somewhat low. Having said that, if someone within his immediate entourage decides that they want to do him in, then maybe they'll be able to do it. But to answer the question, I don't think, because of Putin's cowardice, that he would do that. Having said that, that he has said things which have sort of in a quasi-religious manner, he's comparing himself to the suffering of Christ on the cross. He's made speeches of this nature. He said a world cannot exist without Russia, and this has been repeated by other people as though that they're prepared. Their Russia, it's not Russia, but their Russia goes under, then the whole world has to go up with it as well, as though it was like one of these suicide bombers, and he's perfectly prepared to allow that to happen. So anyway, so James, I hope that is the next thing. How do I see the war going? I very much hope that Russia will be kicked out of all of the Ukraine, plus the Donbass, as by the but I hope they've been kicked out of Crimea as well. I do see Crimea as being somewhat more difficult, if not for the geographical reasons that it's very easy to defend. And the fact is, of course, that in 1940, 41 and 1944, in both times the Crimea didn't, the defenses weren't strong enough to actually hold it, first of all to stop the Nazi Germany invasion, and in the second time to stop the Soviet Union invasion. In fact, the biggest battles in Crimea were in fact around Sevastopol. So it was a siege, which was 1941 to 1942. In fact, Sevastopol wasn't captured until June of 1942. But so I would see that. Somebody else actually made a comment about the nationalities of people in Crimea. Now, Crimea voted to be for independence from the Soviet Union by about 59%. It was the lowest, it was the strongest vote, should we say, for the Soviet Union, even though it was defeated, anywhere in Ukraine. There was places in Ukraine, if I remember rightly, which had voted about 97%. I mean, that's bordering on the unbelievable, just about, to leave the Soviet. But Crimea was 59% in favor of leaving. The political parties which existed in Crimea before 2014, and you can actually look at this, you can see this on the internet, so it's quite open. You can see that the amount of votes for people who wanted to join Russia, there were parties that wanted to join Russia, but it's absolutely minor. It's a bit like the Raving Monster Loony Party in the United Kingdom. It gets they got a similar amount of votes. So it's just not, it's very hard to believe that there is a significant pro-Russia or pro-Putin amount of the population there. It needs to be borne in mind as well that whereas somebody may speak Russian as their first language, but they don't identify themselves as being part of Putin's Russia. And indeed, I would argue that they're probably in border areas, that in Belgorod or Rostov, maybe less so in Rostov, but in Belgorod, there would be plenty of people only too happy to become part of Ukraine, Bryansk Oblast as well, because the greater possibilities that being that this would offer from things such as standard of living and freedom of and the like, and hopefully. So these are things. In my experience in Ukraine, it's that okay, I don't speak Ukrainian, but I can understand if people speak slowly. But I mean, I openly speak to people in Russian in the Western Ukraine, Lviv. Sorry, I was hesitant about it, but in central Ukraine and in the east and the south, it just doesn't. I don't even think twice. I just speak to the people in Russian, and you hear Russian's the main language you actually hear, and there's a clear hatred towards Russia. I mean, the I have only ever met one person who didn't like the president in the current situation, and the support. I have not come across anybody in Ukraine that supported Putin. I don't deny that there must be people who support Putin, but I haven't come across them at all. Today, curiously enough, I saw something in the street here, and there was a Ukrainian vehicle. It appeared to me to be a new Toyota. Now, I don't recognise cars. Now, on motorhomes, I'm quite good. I can see a motorhome and I can tell you, or a van or something, and I can tell you. I can tell you what year it was from. But this Toyota looked to me quite new, but it had a Lugansk plate on it. And anyway, I started thinking about this. Oh yeah, I'll take a photograph. But I obviously have to do it rather. I have to sort of hold my pretend I'm sort of hold the camera out and pretend I'm taking a photograph of myself, and to do it the other way. I thought that was quite odd. I mean, or maybe it's been permitted that people from Lugansk can have their cars with the number plate, even though they're living somewhere else, Dnipro or Kiev or something. Now, Tarquin asks, wasn't Crimea part of Russia until Khrushchev gave it to Ukraine? Tarquin, this is one of the. I was even thinking of doing a video on this earlier in the week. This is okay. That is true, but it's only part of the truth. Crimea was occupied in the 18th century by the Tsars, and initially Crimea was part of a geographical area. The oblast that it was in was part of what is today Ukraine. And that situation existed until 1919, when after the Bolshevik Revolution, and they reformed the oblasts, the administrative areas, the counties, or not really counties, they're sort of bigger than that, states, if you like, sort of thing. And so then Crimea, when after the borders here were redrawn, Crimea was part of the Russian Soviet Socialist Republic. And so it remained so until 1954, so from 1990 to 1954. And so it's 35 years it was part of Russia. And then it went back to being part of Ukraine, which is more logical in any case. Now, if we look at the population statistics, what we can see is a decline in the number of Tatar people who themselves were subject to deportation. I would say even quasi-genocide. Maybe not genocide, it's not the right word, but in this case, but certainly, I mean, lots and lots of people were killed. They were deported en masse by the Kremlin, by Stalin, the person who's really popular today. And so these people were sent off to Central Asia, though some of them did manage to come back. Now, people have said these are the native population. The trouble with saying things like native population, it only just depends how far back you go. So this is all, when you're dealing with borders, this is always a problem. So what we see now with this argument, wasn't Crimea part of Russia? It was part of Russia, but it only just depends how far back you go. So you go back 50 years, no, it wasn't. If you go back 100 years, yes, it was. If you go back 150 years, no, it wasn't. So effectively, Crimea has now been is occupied now for 9 years, and just over 9 years. So this is 25% of the time that Crimea has been part of Russia has been since the most recent occupation. I think I mean, difficult is really difficult to say, because I don't know. I do appreciate there are places like Sevastopol, which may have be Russian leaning, particularly as they've got there's the military base there. Lots of people depend on their living on the Russian Navy, and they wouldn't have jobs if the Russian Navy wasn't there. So they they may have been pro-Russia for that reason. But I do not believe another place. And let's face it, the biggest single demonstration that occurred in February of 2014 was pro-Ukraine, and it wasn't pro-Russia. So and then you've got this referendum, 97.6% in favor of Russia, considering now from having the people in favor of a union with Russia, which was like 1-2%, according to the election results. Then suddenly you get a result of 97%. You've got to start thinking, well, there's something a bit fishy there. It's a bit like the Nazi German referendums, where if you're there to believe, you've got most Jewish people voting for the Nazis. So it just didn't. That clearly is not the case. So that's how I would say. I'm sorry if that was a long-winded response to that one. Well, it was rather so the idea originally, but two very questions there: how the war will develop, and the situation of Crimea being part of Russia. So, well, thanks very much anyway for today. So I hope you found that of interest. If you've got any comments, you can actually put them below. And today I did some research, and I'll have to dictate it up about a telegram which was sent in August 1942, warning of the Holocaust, and it was sent by a German industrialist. And so I'm going now and I'll finish that up today, and finish writing it up today. And then my big problem is dictating it, because I'm in my van now. Okay, it's in the evening, but I normally got birds and things that make a lot of noise around me in the morning, so it's difficult to find a time to actually dictate anything. Anyway, I don't even hear the birds now, but then again, it's quite late. They're not very noisy now. There's also this black woodpecker. I don't know, at least one makes a real racket outside. Okay, thanks very much for being here, and all the best from me. And I still have to do some live chats on some of the things I've done in the past on Hermann Goering and the Hitler Diaries, but I'll do that eventually. Thanks, and all the best. Bye for now. Thanks, Annie. So see you later. Another video on the other channel in an hour's time. Bye. Bye. I will do. I will stay safe.